Shortly after the French and American revolutions, as well as certain ideas of nationalism that start in Europe, we see that come over to Latin America. And the Latin American revolutions for independence mark the end of the 1800s leading into the end of the 1700s into the 1800s. What we're going to look at is just a brief overview of the different movements of independence and how they work together. First, you need a little bit of understanding of social divisions as well as geography. Take a look at the geography of Central and South America. In Central America, as well as most of South America, in both places, Spain was in control. Spain, of course, being in Europe. So the country of Spain had a lot of power in those areas, whereas we still see France has certain power over a few, including Haiti, and Portugal had control over Brazil. All right. Then another just quick background point in terms of social structure, how people were divided in the society. If you were straight off the boat from Spain, you were the highest, most elite part of society. Creoles were people who had been born to Spanish parents in the Americas, and they actually had less opportunity during this time than people straight from Spain. Mestizos and mulattoes, which are not positive terms that we use today, but were used then to describe ethnic mixes, were even less valued and had less opportunity in South American and Central American society. Basically, the revolutions of Latin America are an attempt by either the Creoles, the Mestizos, or the mulattoes to gain more control and power into the process and eventually unify themselves against Spanish control. This is how it starts. It actually starts in Haiti. Incidentally, Haiti was a colony of the French, and the French had just been having their own revolution. So the Haitian slaves in this French colony hear about this, and they think those ideas should be ours too. It's not really fair that we have only, that we're slaves of a whole civilization that's seeking to not be slaves of their king. And so they revolt against the French army. Napoleon tries to put it down. He tries to end this revolution, which is very interesting because here he is both finishing and ending the French Revolution, and he tried to do the same to the Haitians, but he actually loses. Haiti's revolution is the first successful Latin American revolution and actually put a lot of fear into slave owners as they saw slaves themselves arming themselves and gaining independence. Eventually, this spreads, or pretty quickly, this revolutionary fervor and spreads to Mexico. It started by this guy, Father Miguel Hidalgo. He, in 1810, he gathers some of the local lower class people. He rings the bells of his church and declares Mexico independent from Spain. This starts the movement towards independence. Unfortunately, Miguel Hidalgo's movement was not particularly well organized, and within a year he was captured and actually executed. However, what's really important is that by doing all of that, he did accomplish successfully the first step towards independence. And even still today, Mexicans recognize 1810 as the date of their independence, even though they had to fight for it for the next 10 to 11 years. Now, think about it. Americans do the same thing. 1776 is the date we count as the beginning of the United States, when in fact we still had to fight a war against Britain to prove that we were independent. So it's kind of the same idea. Miguel Hidalgo says they're independent, so that's the start, but they then have to fight to prove that claim. The Mexican War for Independence lasts from 1811 to 1821. It was not led by Miguel Hidalgo because, of course, he had been captured and executed, but it was led by a couple other characters. The first character, who you see on the left, actually was more conservative, and he brings in, even though he throws off Spain at the end of 21 and declares that Spain is no longer part of the Americas, no longer should be part of Mexican government, and they alone were going to be. But then he declares himself emperor. A very conservative. Think about what conservatism is. It's support of monarchy. So he's making himself a monarch, even though it's through a revolution. He, though, does not have a lot of popularity. So this guy right here, Santa Anna, comes in later, and he takes over and gains support against this movement towards an emperor, and actually gains a more liberal revolution in Mexico. In the United States, history does not remember Santa Anna well because of the Alamo pictured right here. However, for Mexico, Santa Anna was incredibly significant in bringing about independence. He then declares himself dictator, and we move to another region. This man, Simon Bolivar, also leads to revolution in other parts of South America. So while Mexico and Haiti have now declared their independence, at the same time, this man is going all throughout South America, also spreading revolution. He is actually known as the Liberator because of how much work he did in order to promote freedom and independence. He frees over time, of course, it's a long process, but he ends up freeing Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, and Ecuador. And then later, Anne adds to kind of the realm that he was both promoting freedom and then also ruling, the country which would be named after him, Bolivia, and then into Peru. He tried to unify all of these into one country, which he called Grand Colombia. Take a look up in the northern part of South America. You see that whole region, which now is multiple countries. He was trying to make basically the United States of South America. He wanted all of these places to be part of one country, and he said that's the only way we'll win against Spain. Unfortunately, it doesn't last, at least unfortunately for his plan, but it does promote independence and freedom for South America. Of course, he had some help. Simon Bolivar, while an incredible man, was not alone. And he was helped particularly in Peru, by this man, Jose de San Martin, who had already been fighting for independence in Argentina, helps him by establishing an idea to attack and surprise the Spanish in Chile, which is next to Peru, by going over the Andes Mountains. This reminds us of a lot of other amazing warriors who have crossed the mountains to surprise their enemies. I don't know if you ever learned about Hannibal and how he does that over the Alps into Italy. But basically, that's what Simon Bolivar and Jose de San Martin do, and thereby free Peru. It's kind of the last blow for most of South America to become free from Spanish control. And for the most part, that's the end. By 1898, the last part of Spanish control, which was actually in Cuba, is freed thanks to the Spanish-American War. And so then, before the 1900s even roll around, all of the Spanish colonies of South America have been handed over independence and nationalism, and so liberalism and nationalism win.